dive 2 miles below sea level, and the cool eels that you're used to see gliding through the water or using these sick electric abilities are now just straight horror shows. They've grown 5 times as long, their jaws have become massive or disappeared completely, and they end up looking like anything but what eels are supposed to look like. Some eels gained the ability to unhinge their mouths for swallowing fish whole. Some intentionally made themselves blind to heighten their other senses. And some just started eating each other.
Because I guess anything's game when you're this creepy.
Why did these eels give up their sleek bodies and electric powers just to replace them with these nightmare adaptations? And what's actually causing these eels to deform into these things the further down you go? If you saw our squids video, you already know that the deep sea can have some nasty effects on marine life. But how does this affect eels? First, we have to look at the eels not in the deep, like this one. This is the snowflake eel, and as you might have guessed by its name, it's basically the opposite of creepy. They're found in the epipelagic zone, and the fact they don't live in deep water is the exact reason why they don't look heinously terrifying, and end up looking more like a cool piece of coral. They use their colour to blend in with rocks and coral and sand, so prey won't see them coming when they hunt. Also, I feel obliged to mention this eel since everyone's going to ask, but the electric eel isn't actually an eel. They're knife fish that just look like eels. So some misinformed scientist hundreds of years ago called them eels, and the name stuck. They are found at surface level too, but not even technically found in the epipelagic zone since they live in freshwater rivers. These guys can be dangerous, but again, not necessarily creepy. But once you head deeper and enter the twilight zone, you'll actually start to see the first eel that's been morphed by this effect. This is where you'll find the conger eel, a much larger, darker, and aggressive version of shallow water eels. Its body has lost all colourful pigment, and because they're in the twilight zone, its eyes have grown much bigger to capture any small amount of light left. They're oddly muscular too. Snowflake eels, for comparison, weigh about 1 to 2 pounds, whereas adult conger eels can reach up to 130. Yeah, they're thick fellas. Conger eels are basically the real-life version of sea serpents, but they actually aren't usually aggressive towards divers, unless provoked. I know they look like something out of Subnautica, but they're more or less chill towards humans, so why did they end up this way? Conger eels evolved for the twilight zone, where there's just enough light left for shadows, but not enough for colour. That's why they've lost all pigment and turned pitch black to blend into the dim water. And since there's still some light to work with, they've developed huge, sensitive eyes to catch even the faintest motion. So what happens to eels' eyes in a place with zero light? Well, this is what happens in the midnight zone. The eels here start to just not even look like eels, and more like deformed worms. This is the sawtooth eel, and can reach up to 6 feet long. Its jaw is lined with long, needle-like teeth that stick out even when its mouth is closed, making it so the eel is forced into a permanent snarl. Its body is pitch black and paper thin, and because food is so rare this deep, it will eat just about anything, including other eels. Snipe eels look like if you took the sawtooth eel and somehow warped its face even more. Their mouths aren't even able to close all the way because of the shape, and its body has been stretched immensely thin. It's creepy and doesn't even really look like an eel, but unlikely to attack you since they aren't very large. So why are they even shaped this way? Their jaws are designed to snatch prey, or literally snipe them while they drift through the water. They're focused on shrimp or other small crustaceans, and hook food with backwards facing teeth. At the bottom of the midnight zone is Neocyema earthasima, an eel so rare that scientists just call it by its scientific name. It was first discovered in 2018, which for reference is super recent in marine biology, and only a few specimens have ever been found. The most strange part about it is that this eel just looks unfinished. You can literally see its organs through its skin, and it doesn't even have visible eyes. Whatever eyes are left buried under its skin are completely vestigial, meaning that they don't even work anymore, and are literally just relics of evolution from ancestor eels that once could see. You might be wondering how this thing even survives, since it's a bright orange flag that can't see anything. And honestly, we don't fully know because of how rare they are. But the fact their eyes don't work isn't actually a disadvantage. Down here, vision is basically useless. There's no sunlight, only a few bioluminescent creatures, and nothing that really cares what you look like. Instead, Neocyema earthasima has likely evolved to rely on touch and vibration, using specialized nerves along its body to sense movement and pressure changes in the water. Beneath the midnight zone is the abyssopelagic zone, which is the final zone where eels reach their absolute limits. And of all the eels that live in the deep, none are more recognizable or more unsettling than the gulper eel. At first glance, it honestly doesn't even look real. Its mouth is so massive that when it opens, it looks like its entire head is about to turn inside out. The jaws can balloon to a size several times larger than the eel's own body, forming a huge, gaping pouch that can swallow prey almost as big as itself. When it's just swimming in the water, you can barely even tell what's going on. And no, those aren't its nostrils, those are its eyes. Unlike most deep-sea predators, the gulper eel doesn't chase anything. Instead, it drifts through the darkness and waits, luring smaller fish and crustaceans close with a bioluminescent tip at the end of its long, whip-like tail, a trick they probably stole from the anglerfish. Once something too curious gets close, the eel opens its jaw like a net and gulps everything in one go. When it's not feeding, the mouth folds back into a small, almost delicate head, which somehow makes it even creepier. Its body is paper thin and jet black, its eyes are tiny, and the tail glows like a distant light in an endless void. It's easily one of the most alien-looking animals on Earth, proof that the deeper you go, the stranger things get. So if it gets so flat, where does it keep its brain? Well, that's the creepy part. It barely has one. The gulper eel's brain is tiny, buried deep behind its enormous jaws, taking up almost no space at all. Most of its head is just flexible skin, muscle, and empty cavity so that the mouth can balloon outward. Its actual brain is about the size of a pea, tucked just above the throat. That's exactly why it's shown up in deep-sea horror games like Subnautica and Dredge. Designers or modders use gulper eels as direct references because they already feel like monsters. But are they actually dangerous to us in real life? Well, fully realistically speaking, definitely not, because firstly, you'll never even meet one naturally. They live 2,000 to 3,000 meters below the surface and almost never come up. Second, they're not aggressive. They don't bite or hunt like sharks, they wait and gulp. Their jaws are big, but not strong. They aren't meant to tear things apart. They're built to trap floating prey. You're not on the menu unless you're under a foot tall. That said, if one ever did get curious and tried to swallow something human-sized, you wouldn't get bitten. You'd just get vacuum sealed. But if you go even deeper than the gulper eel, there lives a very close relative to gulpers. This is the deep-sea swallower, or Saphopharynx amylaceus, and it's essentially an even more disturbing version of the gulper eel. Its entire body is basically just a mouth and a stomach. The jaw can open wider than the eel's own body, and its stomach can stretch so much that it can swallow prey larger than itself. When it does swallow something huge, its body inflates like a grotesque balloon, distorting into something that barely resembles an animal anymore. After that, it just hangs motionless for days while it digests. So what's the main reason between this and the gulper eel? Well, while they do look quite similar, the deep-sea swallower has a larger focus on its stomach that can grow and make the eel just look absolutely freaky. But again, these are deep-sea eels, so we really just don't know too much about them. I honestly wish I had more footage to show you guys of these eels swallowing something like a giant fish whole, but they're simply so mysterious that what's available is just so limited. So, is there anything deeper and creepier than this? Well, sort of. While those two gulper eels live in the upper abyssal zone, there's one eel that lives deeper. At the bottom of the abyssal zone, and the only eel that could potentially leak into the Haddle zone, is the one-jaw eel. This is an eel that literally has, well, you already guessed it. This honestly is one of the strangest eels possible, because what evolutionary advantage would there be to having no upper jaw? It's suspected that this eel eats by using its singular lower jaw like a hook to impale prey that drifts by, and gulps it down in one swallow, because it can't really chew properly. For obvious reasons. Their eyes have been reduced to essentially specks that are completely non-functional, and they don't even have any functional fins. The fins that are left have merged seemingly into their tail and help it hover. Unfortunately, these animals are so unbelievably rare that we know even less about them than we do gulper eels. All we do know is that they're born seemingly missing multiple body parts, and yet haven't gone extinct. If it wasn't for a few deep-sea catches, no one, including the fish down there, would even know what one-jaw eels look like. The crazy part is, even though we've technically caught some of these eels before, we still barely know what they actually look like alive. That's because you can't just drag a deep-sea animal to the surface and expect it to stay in one piece. These creatures evolved under crushing pressure, literally hundreds of times what we experience at sea level, and their bodies reflect that. Instead of having strong bones or protective shells, most deep-sea eels have gelatinous bodies, soft tissue, and gas-filled cavities to withstand that pressure. It works down there, but the second they're pulled up, all that pressure disappears, and the internal balance is destroyed. Organs rupture, eyes bulge or collapse, assuming they even had any eyes. Stomachs balloon outwards, and most specimens literally explode on the way up because the gases inside expand so rapidly. In fact, half the time researchers catch these things in deep trawls. What they get isn't a monster that's trying to eat them or crawl its way back into the ocean, it's just a leaking sack of black goo with teeth. And even when a body makes its way to the surface in one piece, it's usually so warped or decomposed by decompression that it's impossible to tell what it looked like when it was alive. The color is gone, the body is bloated, the structure is ruined. So when we say we don't know much about deep-sea eels, it's meant literally. Our only options are either to catch something that gets destroyed on the way up, or catch seconds of footage from deep-sea ROVs before it swims away and vanishes forever. It's like trying to study aliens, except every time you find one, they combust before you're allowed to study them. So deep-sea eels can't be brought to the surface. Got it. So why can't eels go any deeper than this into the deeper Haddle zone? At a certain point, the pressure in the water just becomes too much. Not even for their bodies, but for how they're built. Eels rely on flexible skeletons and soft tissue to twist, swim, and hunt. But down past 8,000 or 9,000 meters, that flexibility starts working against them. The extreme pressure compresses every air pocket, every muscle fiber, until movement itself becomes almost impossible. This is likely why the one-jaw eel looks the way it does. It's not built to thrive, it's built to barely exist. At those depths, evolution isn't about improvement anymore. It's about survival in its most stripped-down form. The one-jaw eel has essentially become a minimalist version of life. No working eyes, no real fins, no upper jaw, and barely any pigmentation. Every unnecessary feature has been erased by pressure and darkness. What exists in the lower part of the Haddle zone are creatures that barely swim, more just float. Creatures that exist just to endure. Maybe the reason why the one-jaw looks so creepy is that it's a form of life that neither we nor any creature in the dark were ever supposed to see. Thanks for watching, and last thing before the video ends, I want to thank you guys for hitting 10,000 subscribers.
This would literally not be possible without all 10,000 of you.
And if you guys have an idea of anything you want me to make a video on, just let me know in the comments. You're the boss, and I read every single comment you leave. And if you're looking for another video to watch, you can check out the video I made about how this phenomenon affects squids too. Some squids can even reach the Haddle zone.